did. I rolled pretty hard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I beat our belt in the arbitrons.
Wow,
So that was pretty good. It was a pretty big
that's
deal.
amazing.
Yeah, they sandwiched me between uh, a guy that liked to talk about projectile diarrhea.
Oh, it's red.
Oh, okay. Welcome. You're at us. We call it us because it's all about us. And what that means is we're in this together. All the nonsense going on around us is because we haven't been. We're in this together in the sense of like the Olympic rings, to where we're linked, individuals linked together to create an actual thing, being, whatever. The reason we're in the position we're in is because we've weakened and we allowed people to lord over us. We allowed them to see us as subjects as opposed to equals. We'd allowed ourselves to just lay down and let them lord and tell us what to do, that kind of nonsense, as opposed to showing our strength and standing up for what matters. Like the guy that gets arrested for growing vegetables in his yard, or the people drinking nonsense, crap water in Flint. This stuff doesn't have to happen and shouldn't be. And it wouldn't be if everybody stood up like they should. That's what this is all about. Now, in this show, what it's about is it's metaphysically based in the fact that this is kind of where I'm coming from. I'm a career psychic, intuitive, whatever you want to call it. I've been in the business about 32 years. In that time, I've seen a lot of changes in the consciousness of the people around me and in our country and really global. We're at a point where things are changing, as we can see by looking around. It isn't just destruction. It isn't the end of the world. It's the end of the world as we know it. What that means is a conscious change. When the Mayan calendar talked about the 2012 change, they weren't talking about all of a sudden everybody being telekinesis or what the hell you call that, telepathic or any of that nonsense. What it meant is a change of consciousness. Some people were calling it the feminine energy, which is where you start coming from the heart, from the intuition, from spirit, vibration, and things outside of the physical. Using those things outside of the physical to be able to navigate the physical realm, as opposed to laying down like some dead dog or some wounded dog and let somebody beat you. Okay? So that's what we're here to do. What we'll do every week, we'll have somebody here as a guest that will be doing just that. We'll be helping people find their strength so that they can be a stronger link in the collective. Once the collective becomes strong, these suit-wearing megalomaniacs wouldn't have the power that they have now. If everybody would stand up and they know that the people will do it, they'd shut up more often and probably tell the truth once in a while. And it ain't happening now. But as you see in some parts of the world, you'll see that people have gotten a little strong with things, and the politicians are starting to change their tune just a little bit at a time. Well, we got to do more of that. And that's how it has to be in the future. Laying down, hugging trees, and telling everyone you love them is awesome. But it ain't all that's here. It ain't all that what we need to be doing. We need balance. We need the intelligence and the understanding of a spirit or a focus in the vibration. We need the strength of courage, and we need the conscious understanding of things. So instead of going off the cuff on some fear tangent and throwing a fit and yelling at each other and calling people dirty names, you think it through for a second, make your point in a quiet way, and walk the hell away from it. But it's all important also for us to link together against things like the Flint situation, or the guy that gets arrested because he's catching water at his house, or the injustices of the little kid getting beat up by a cop, or the cop being beat up by these people, or whatever. But the idea, we all need to stand up. Now, the guests that we'll have here will be although I'm metaphysical in my intent, it's not going to be a lot of the, what you would call the furry stuff, the fuzzy stuff. It's more about people that are like the guest we have now. He does a thing that helps people get stronger in their own intent, strong in their own spirit and their approach to life. That's what this stuff is all about. And that's what this is all about. So that's why we're here. Every week, my co-host is Brittany. Hello.
Hello.
All right. She's here every week. It's the counterbalance because I'm this gorilla and she's not. Anyway, today we have a really cool guest because I got into the DFW market, I guess you'd say, as far as psychic stuff and intuitive stuff is concerned, back when they would throw rocks at you. It was not cool back then. I was getting death threats, the whole thing. And to find someone that did what I did, you had to pretty much know somebody or know where to look. Well, this guy, his name's Tony Cecala, he had one of those things. He had this thing, the Holistic Networker. And there were other publications, but this one covered more ground than any of the others. And and they have the Wellness Expo stills, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But the coolest thing that I really like, and it's up to him how much he wants to talk about it, he does the avatar. And back in 1979, I found a book. I come out of the Marine Corps a total horrible knuckle dragger, all about women fighting and drugs. I read that book, and it started me thinking that there's a whole new way of looking at things that were not necessarily shown. And the Avatar, I just read that book, and hell, I don't know if it took how long it took me to read it because I was chasing women. But the thing I read it, and there was enough in there that I got out of it that it made me start thinking in those terms. Anyway, we'll talk to him now. His name is Tony Cecala, and there you go, buddy.
Hey, fantastic! Thanks for having me here, Robert and Brittany. Great to meet you.
Great to meet you.
So, how long you did the Avatar? I mean, you're like an Avatar master now, right?
Avatar master is the word we use. That's a person who can take a person through the Avatar course. It's a guided training that lasts for 9 days. Now, 9 days is a lot to devote yourself to, but when you think about how important the rest of your life is, to put in those 9 days is unimaginable. I mean, what ends up coming out at the other side? And the course is basically a guide through your own blueprint of your mental models of what's going on inside your head.
How you see it.
How you see the world. And the questions that are asked, and that's really what we do. We help ask the right questions because we've studied the materials, and the materials were written by a man named Harry Palmer. And Harry was a teacher and an entrepreneur for many years, but he studied enough throughout his life, and his karma was, his dharma was to do this. He obviously had other lifetimes. He doesn't talk about himself. You don't know much about Harry. You know about the materials, and that's the way it should be. He's not a guru. He doesn't want to be a guru. He wants to get out of the way because the materials should lead. What happens when someone becomes a guru? Then
Well, then it goes into an ego aspects and.
Well, yeah,
because you take your material and what usually happens I see is that people create this material, good material, but eventually it becomes, you know what, I created that material. I created that material. Material is all about me. I'm the one that matters. It starts going that direction.
Exactly.
And I didn't see that with the Avatar.
No, Harry gets out of the way. I mean, he's
and that's what it's all about.
Really about the material. He's about the person, and as an Avatar master, you're taught, okay, how do you put your attention on the student and help guide them? Because again, it's not about you, it's about the student. And so it's the most rewarding thing that anyone can do, to guide someone through.
So is it based on like a Q&A thing, or is it a meditative thing?
Well, that's the neat thing about Avatar. I mean, there's so much that you can explore yourself. There's a book we call the Resurfacing book, and that is a series of 30 exercises that will you can experience what Avatar is about.
Yeah.
There are 30 exercises, and you'll take a walk and notice things. And you come back and you say, what do you notice? And you're like, and they'd be like,
Now,
you
when
know,
you say take a walk, you're talking about go walk, inner walk?
A walk outside.
Oh,
The
outside.
real world, yeah.
Outside.
Yeah,
Oh.
so-
But you'll see things differently.
right, because
on your walk.
because we say, hey, did you notice this? Did you notice that? Little things like that. And then there are 30 different exercises you can explore, you know, and that's the resurfacing workshop. That's the first 2 days of the Avatar course that you can do by yourself at home.
Yeah.
It's better to do it a group. And now we're doing them on Zoom, which is just crazy.
Very nice, yeah.
I never imagined that we never did it on Zoom.
Now, would you say that would help to reduce the reactive aspects? For example, you know, a lot of people, you can almost tell to what level they're doing it, but a lot of people do a lot of their day reactively, not actively at all. You see, like there's people that I see every now and then, and it's natural human behavior. It's nothing you can really look down on or anything like that, because hell, I do it too. You know, not as much as I want to, more than I want to, you see. But you take these, you get an input, some kind of stimulus, and then you react to it, and you don't even think about it. And then if you take a couple of minutes to think about it, it's like, whoa, what was that about? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly.
And really, I think that's why we're here. Because when we started evolutionary, like in the evolution, for example, say we go way back to the one cells or whatever, we start with instinctual behavior, and we start with reacting to stimulus on the outside and reacting very quickly. Now he's going to a more complicated minds and bodies and connection to all that is. Then now it's important to act, not react. Right now, we're actually in the middle of that, don't you think? We're at a point where we got half our people are reacting off their ass. And other people are going, no, wait a minute, we need to do this. We need to do this. We need to do this. But then it's going back and forth. And what it is, to me, it's the kind of like the seesaw thing, you know? You've got the faction that's really kind of destructive, which is really reactive thinking is kind of destructive because there's no thought in it. And it's doing this. Eventually, what this consciousness change is doing, eventually it's going to overpower to where the consciousness, the higher consciousness, will start to take more control of what's going on.
Right. Yeah, isn't that what we're looking for?
That's what it's all about.
To move up, you know, to move up from the bodily needs, what Maslow talks about, your physical needs, you know, from the bodily needs to move into the mental so that we can think our way through problems, and then to move into the spiritual realm. The spiritual realm is right here.
Right.
You know, we say, oh, we're going to go out, you know, but it's here. It's right here, and we are engaging in it. But the different levels of consciousness, you know, they're all embedded within the different spheres. And so if you can start to operate as a spiritual being, start to use your heart and your spiritual faculties, connecting with people and be able to develop compassion. The Course helps you develop compassion, helps you to develop gratitude, to be able to use those other domains. Then you're operating outside of the physical, the spiritual, the animal domain, or the mental, the intellectual domain, where it's actually a step up from the animal, but now instead of like fighting with our hands, we're fighting with words.
Right.
So the spiritual domain is like, hey, how can I help you? How can I help? We see that we're all in
How
it
could we
together.
work this out?
Exactly, as you described in your introduction so eloquently. I mean, we're here together.
Right.
So what would you do with a person like via Zoom? I know you said there's a few things we can do on our own. What would you maybe do with someone?
Well, yeah, if you do the resurfacing over Zoom, I mean, you're going to do every one of those 30 exercises, you know, and the first exercise is pretty amazing. I mean, you fill out a personality profile, and you put in, you know, well, wherever I come from. And, you know, that profile helps to take you to a place where now suddenly you're looking at your life in a bigger picture. You know, we say but you're widening back, you're looking. And then we help an advanced avatar trainer will look at the profile and help guide you through, just debrief you a little bit. Debriefing is a big part of the course. So you do it, and you're like, okay, well, what did you experience? Because sometimes you'll take a walk and you didn't have an experience. You never have a realization. And so we help people to have realizations. And so the whole course is, you're just full of realizations. Your mind quiets. My brother-in-law took the course with us, and it was just, you know, we did it here in Richardson, and you know, his mind stopped for the first time. And he comes from a family of lawyers, so they're debating. You know,
Right.
all his brothers.
Their whole mentality's out.
Yeah, and so him and he was just, I mean, he couldn't. He's like, it all stopped. And so that happens.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. I think everything there's a pattern with everything from global to the individual. You see, like you're saying, you're starting to, you do these paths, you observe and you see what's going on. And really, I think what you end up doing is understanding your mental language. Is that right?
Yeah, you understand your belief systems. You start to uncover what are the beliefs that are driving your life.
Yeah.
And those beliefs, when you discover them, then you can re-own them.
And so many times you don't even know it.
Oh, always. Always. Yeah, that's exactly what
Like
happens.
not long ago, I'm sure she don't mind because she doesn't even, I know she don't, I ain't gonna say no names. Anyway, I was talking to this lady, and one of her biggest problems was that her husband had cheated on her, like over and over and over, for like 20 years. And she left him, and she was totally torn to pieces, man. The woman, to talk to her, she just started crying at any moment, you know. And I said to her, I said, so, you know, y'all split up, you know, you should be getting a little past this, you know. She goes, well, it just reminds me that I wasn't woman enough for him. And I said, what the hell does that mean? And she goes, well, I wasn't woman enough to keep my man. Really? I said, well, what's woman enough? And she stammered a bit and had no freaking clue. Then I said, okay, what would you have to do to be woman enough? I said, you sleep with a fella? Yeah. Did you talk to him? Y'all get along okay? Yeah, we never fought. You hung out with the kid, did a little barbecue, whatever? Yeah. So what would you have done different to be woman enough? She goes, I don't know. Nothing. I said, you must be woman enough already then, right? Yeah. Maybe he broke his promise. Maybe he wasn't man enough. She got her house back. Everything's all different now.
Wow.
All she needed was to realize that she was going by a belief system that wasn't even hers. You know?
Yeah.
Pretty nuts, man. But it's cool. That's what we're doing, is to break out of that reactive behavior and start thinking it through, you know? So I think I interrupted you, baby, did I?
Oh no, you're fine.
You're good.
I was just gonna. I'm assuming it helps you tap more into your intuitiveness and intuitive skills.
Oh, I mean, for every person, it's a different experience. You know, certainly you can tap into your intuition because, again, you've quieted your mind. So quieting your mind helps you to be more intuitive. Some people will notice that, some people won't. Everybody's experience is different.
Yeah.
Can
It's
you
whatever
tell
you
us,
need.
like maybe one exercise that you do, for example?
Oh, yeah. We, you know, one of the exercises in the resurfacing is there's an exercise. Oh, there's so many fun exercises. You can take someone, really taking a walk is one of the exercises.
Okay.
And we ask people to notice something far away and something close.
So just teaching someone how to get out of their head so much.
The
A little bit.
exercises, they cover different ground, but the course is about attention management.
Okay.
It's about where's your attention? That's where your reality is. When you discover you can control your attention, you know, stopping your mind by focusing more in the physical world. I mean, that's one of the ways, and it's very profound.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons I was thinking about you, because the Avatar, like I said, that little book, I don't even know where I got the damn book. You know?
Yeah, that's funny because when I got the magazine, you
Yeah.
know, and I was like, whoa, where did they get this from? And then, you know, I would start getting it every month. And I was like, it didn't take too long before I realized, hey, this feels different. This is amazing.
Yeah. I was reading through it, and it had a couple techniques to work on, and I thought, wow, this is weird. Where the hell did I get this book? And I just did it because it was between whatever else I was doing at the time. And I started realizing it had kind of changed my whole thinking. You know, it was the beginning, you know, before I knew I had to do this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so it's very transformative. I mean, you can just read the book. I mean, and there are several books, and Harriet has written overview book that if you want to understand the theory of it, like where is it coming from?
Yeah.
You know,
Has it changed very much over time, or?
not at all.
Really?
I mean, probably every exercise is the same from when Harry wrote it in 1987. But the way we teach it's different. Now we can
A little
do
bit
it
more
on-
streamlined,
we
probably.
can do it on Zoom. I mean, it's basically we've had to change, as Avatar
As things change.
masters, to learn how to do it more effectively. And we go back for trainings regularly, to
Yeah.
up our game to make sure we're doing it, and this consciousness that we have experienced. You talk about consciousness evolving. We've experienced, in the early days, people could barely get through that first course,
Right.
and there's crying and tears, and now people go through the 9 days and it's like, and they zoom through, and then for the first 10 years, kids really weren't like expected to do the course.
Yeah.
Kids are going to be running around now. 2 and 3 year olds go through the 9-day Avatar course.
Yeah.
They do amazing.
You know what it is, though? It's the collective consciousness. As it changes, things get more possible.
Exactly.
Kids now are more intuitive than they've ever been. They're smarter than they've ever been. I mean, you handed me a laptop when I was 4 or 5 years old. Ain't no freaking way. Hell, I ain't even doing that good at it now, But the consciousness changes, and then pretty soon everything's more possible. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. It's like
So their kids are smarter.
yeah.
I mean, what is that little girl having a fit right now over climate change?
Greta.
Greta?
Is it Greta?
I don't know.
Gretchen?
Greta?
Greta
Yeah, I mean,
Thunberg
when
or
would you
something?
ever? And when I was a kid, I wouldn't see nobody 16 years old, nationally raising all the hell she's raising, and agree with her or not, took a little cojones to do that,
Mm-hmm.
and she had the global consciousness for it to even be important to her.
Well, again, talked about the beliefs. Her folks were involved in from the beginning, and so she was imprinted with, hey, let me be more conscious. And in fact, I think it was her uncle or great uncle who was the person who connected CO2 with climate change.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where they're coming from. I have a different take on it, and we may get into that. I have a lot of topics I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go into that then.
Well, yeah. Well, there's a strong belief in the collective. That CO2 is causing.
Yeah.
But there's another side to it, and before you label someone as a denier of it, let's look at the science. And I started following a website called suspiciousobservers.org, and this fellow Ben, who was a lawyer, and did some science too. He did some research in chemical development, biological development. He's a genius. He's running this website and running this YouTube channel that every morning looks at the sun and says, well, what's going on the sun? Are there sunspots? Where are we in the cycle? We're all familiar with the 11-year sunspot cycle. But there's also a 400-year, I think it's 400, and a 12,000-year. And when you put them all together, you begin to look back in time geologically and see that the sun has had a tremendous effect on the atmosphere. And the IPCC, the International Standards Body that says, hey, this is the model for climate change, they never looked at the sun.
Mm-hmm.
They said, oh, well, look at irradiance or something like that. But it turns out that there's cosmic rays, particles. There's a whole flow coming from the sun in different electromagnetically.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at that, well, everything changes.
Right.
So they weren't looking at the data. They weren't looking at all the data. And so when you discover that, it turns out the sun is driving the climate, and it's called solar forcing.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense, right?
And so, unfortunately, for people going down the path of thinking, well, it's all CO2, and we're to blame. Yeah, we're to blame for pollution. Pollution's horrible.
Yeah, it is.
But, but not the climate. That's not happening. And, and it turns out that, okay, here's the kicker. The 12,000-year cycle is actually a catastrophic cycle. So the sun does this thing, and it kind of goes like micronova.
Yeah.
And what happens is it destroys much of the Earth.
Doesn't that have something to do with a global tilt too?
Exactly. Well,
Yeah. So as it goes to a certain point, then the sun hits, it's different.
well, what happens
it is?
is it's part of there's three things that Ben talks about, and they all intertwined. The universe is a plasma universe.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, it's not gravity that's doing it. It's more like electromagnetic connections between the galaxies and between the sun and the Earth. Mm-hmm. So these electromagnetic connections in this plasma universe actually is the underpinning. So you have to understand a little bit of that. can understand the solar forcing the climate change, and then you can understand the catastrophic changes. And he's got 3 movies, documentaries, like an hour long, each of them, that can explain that. So it turns out that the magnetic poles, they're shifting. They're not in North and South Pole anymore. They're moving really fast. And when they move fast, stuff is happening. And that's a sign. And the magnetic, the Van Allen belts, all the magnetic belts around us, they've dropped in strength from 100%, like say in the 1800s, they've gone down like, I think it's 15 or 20%. And it's accelerating. So then that's another signal that something's happening.
Yeah. Well, it also causes a natural evolution, right? Like, I remember back in forever ago, I heard somebody was saying, he goes, well, there's going to be a point where there's going to be no polar bears, but there'll be grizzlies that are mated with polar bears because that ice thing will change, and it's happening. Mm-hmm. But it isn't because we're driving too many cars or the cows got gas. It's not none of that. It has to do basically with the what you're saying is the change, solar whatever.
Solar cycles.
Yeah, cycles.
And it's a galactic cycle, and what they discovered is the galactic cycle. They've said, well, if this is happening and it's starting from the center of the galaxy, when you start to understand how the plasma universe works, it's fascinating because the connections are amazing. But it turns out, well, if this were to happen, let's look closer to the center of the galaxy and see if these other stars are being hit. Are they going nova? And they actually are. Yeah. So that was a mind-blowing realization in the last couple months.
Yeah. See, you go back to the Mayan calendar thing. That was actually a lot of that Mayans, that ruins and everything are all lined up, their own way. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
They're all lined up. So they had a certain amount of understanding back then. A lot of people think it's because of the interaction with aliens, whatever, and there's a good chance it could have been. Mm-hmm. But that's what that calendar is all about. Everything was going to change. There was a complete shift coming. This is where we are now. But the panic is, it's all our fault. Do you see?
Right.
It's all our fault. Okay, now we're scared. It's all our fault. Now we never get out of it. So we gotta depend on who the hell else, Then we wind up in the ditch.
Well, it's funny you should mention the Mayans because just last night I watched the movie 2012, and I think I had watched it when it first came out. If you go back and see it's on Netflix, 2012 talks about a catastrophe that will happen. They even mentioned the scientist who was involved, actually a CIA agent who ended up becoming a professor at Columbia or posed as a professor, and he set the whole industry, that whole field of science, sideways. He created a theory that was kind of right but kind of wrong, that was easily disproved, and so no one studied cataclysmic science after that.
Right.
And so this movie outlines exactly what's happening. They've twisted it a little bit, but instead of 2012, people are thinking more 2046.
Is it like a movie or
it's
sort of like a
documentary?
documentary?
No, that's
just
a regular movie. Woody Harrelson's in it.
Oh, nice.
He's a crazy guy, of course.
Yeah, he is.
He is, but I do like watching him on movies.
Yeah.
Well, he's got have you heard his poem? Mm-mm. He's got a hell of a poem. I think it's kind of called A Thought or something like that. It's excellent. I didn't think he had it in him.
Yeah.
Really fascinating. Because he's all about that, eating raw food. He says he doesn't want to he doesn't want to be in the living room because living is loving, and loving is under a tree watching animals or something like that. It's very cool.
Interesting.
Very cool.
Yeah,
there's a lot more to the guy than they show.
I'm sure he's had some evolution.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, his dad was in Dallas in
right. Yeah. During the nonsense with the Kennedy and all that,
exactly.
Right? Yeah. I'm pretty sure he had to think that one through.
Yeah. That's a hard one.
So, as you teach these people the avatar thing, how do you think it would change their approach to life, handling life?
Yeah, it's a good way. It's a good word. That's what we say. We give people handles. So you have a handle on life. And so after the tools, you're able to look at, how's my life going? Is it going the way I want? If there's a problem with health, relationships, money, you can look at that and say, okay, well, so what are my beliefs about money? And, and I've done the belief about money many, many times. And it's always changing, like, well, what is my relationship with money? And so over time, over 30 years, you can see that evolve. And, you become well, what is it? Well, you can always tell by what's in your reality. So what are you experiencing about money?
Yeah.
And if you go back far enough, you'll find the original belief. Someone told me money is the root of all evil.
Yeah. Well, my dad would step on his mother to get some money, you know what I'm saying? So that's where I came from, that kind of nonsense. And it never really made sense to me. I remember years ago, man, I walked out in the garage. I was with wife number 3. And I walk in the garage. I had this brand new Mustang, had like 7 miles on it. She had a brand new Honda of some sort. I can't remember. And I thought, man, it's like $1,200 a month to get to the 7-Eleven, right? I said, I think I'm going the wrong way here, you know? So now I ride a motorcycle. That's it, you know?
And kids today take Uber everywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
And the thing about it is I started realizing how much it really doesn't matter to me anymore. Like when I think of money, like, you know, like I'm monetizing this, right? But it isn't because I want to have something. I had this brand new Mustang, had like 7 miles on it. What the hell?
I'm sorry.
Anyway,
I was trying to read a comment.
it's all good, but the thing is now it's got to the point where I don't see the point in anything, in buying a bunch of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And now money to me simply means airline tickets. It's that fucking simple because that's all I care about. I want to get around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we'll be doing
That's
some
important.
of these from India and Thailand and
Nice.
Vietnam, places like that. So, you know, you change your approach because I realized at one point I was going for the money because it was a way to identify myself. Do you see?
Right.
I'm doing this because I'm this. Mm-hmm. Well, screw that. Doesn't work that well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
there's no topping it off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're always reaching. You're always trying to figure it out or burying yourself in the hope. You understand?
Oh yeah.
And all you got to do is chill the frick out, and it'll come on its own, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, really, what we recognize is that when you realize that the universe is plentiful,
Sure.
and you start to embody those beliefs, everything comes to you.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's been with our businesses. We're seeking to support the community with the magazine and now with the Wellness Expo.
Yeah.
What is best for the community? What is best for the community? Then the universe supports you.
Right.
It's not about you.
Right. Like what I was doing when I figured on this is I'm gonna go to all areas of the world and show how people approach their spirituality, how they deal with their own development. You know, like I was at the vegetarian festival in Thailand, and they impale themselves there. Now, the reason they impale themselves is so that they can identify that they detached enough from the body that they're to connect to spirit. Now, it's not my bag. I ain't poking myself with nothing. But that's how they do it.
Yeah, there are many ways to spiritually evolve.
Right. And like a lot of people, I mean, some people will do it like walking on fire or walking, whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's all how you connect. But it all comes to the same thing. Everybody's trying to figure out a way to stand up a little stronger. And that's really what it's about. When everybody stands up a little stronger, they stand up together stronger, then you overcome the adversities and all the fear and all the craziness. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And anyway, that's the rant I'm on. So,
well, when you started in your introduction, really alluding to what's happening and the weirdness that's happening in the world, I thought we would be talking about that for most of the conversation because it really has captured everyone's point of view of, hey, how are we living this world? When this supposed virus, and pandemic is changing all our lives. Yeah. And, from what I can tell from your introduction, I know where you're coming from. I mean, really, you've got people who believe they're free and empowered to experience their life and make choices for themselves, not making many choices at all. I mean, when you're told to sit at home and obey and,
that one's hard for me.
Not asking the questions, it's not about, rebelling, from authority, because there are things that you want to, take into consideration, and certainly concern for others, concern for the frail in our society.
Sure.
I mean, there are people who are dying. There are people dying, but the scale of it, when you do the numbers, those people died from the flu.
Mostly.
But
Yeah.
so these are the people who are scheduled, to probably have a problem with some sort of influenza, some sort of.
Sure.
And so, where do you stand? I mean, there's a health question, there's a power question, and both of those are, important. But it's really, I think it's shown people where their belief systems are,
Yeah.
instead of just guessing. And now
Yeah.
I mean, this guy doesn't want to wear a mask. This guy is wearing a mask. This guy's not going out. This guy's supporting the governor. This guy's pointing out how the governor's.
You see, from my point of view, I don't feel like it's right for I have a reservation on this, the right for the government to tell you to sit in your house. Okay. But the idea would be to put out not mandate, but the guideline that you need to keep your distance. Maybe have the merchants and stuff also work that out, like separate the tables of restaurants or something like that. That makes sense, because if you're doing a business where you got people coming in, you need to do whatever's necessary to make it a little better. You see?
Well, yeah.
But it needs to be on an individual basis, meaning I ain't gonna be told to do anything, but the thing is, I don't do anything anyway.
Right.
I'm not really social anyway.
Right.
But the point is, I'll do what it takes to make sure it doesn't hurt no one. Do you see? But at the same time, it's my responsibility to take care of if I'm going to get it. And it's somebody else's important responsibility to take care if they're going to get it.
Right. It's our personal responsibility.
Like I hit all those criterias that you're supposed to get it if you got this and that. And, weight issue, I'm 62 now and got diabetic. I'm diabetic, right? And I ain't getting it because I ain't freaking doing it. You see?
Right,
And that's just my attitude. But the thing is, I ain't afraid of it because I just won't get it. But the other thing is this. I still am cognizant enough of what's going on to keep my distance. I probably won't wear a mask because I don't think it helps. But I ain't going to breathe on nobody directly either. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Well, it really comes down to where's the data?
Right.
The person who was modeling it said it would be this much. Well, it turned out the models were way wrong.
Yeah.
And and so that person, instead of stepping back and being fired or whatever, that person caused the powers that be. They had an agenda, I believe, to go ahead with whatever they were doing anyway. Because if you had looked at internet in October 17th or 18th, they came out with this Event 201. If you've heard of that, it's a video. It was a Johns Hopkins and the World Economic Forum and the Bill Gates Foundation. They worked together to do this. What if there's a pandemic? Oh wow! It's this. They did that, and they were. I mean, it's very bright people plan ahead. They do.
That's
simulations.
what they do.
That's what they do in the military. But I mean, the timing is uncanny, and exactly what they planned for, happened.
But it kind of makes you go, wait a minute, dude. Did you predict that, or did we have an idea? Because the brother's been Gates. He's always been a type of monopoly lover. They sued him at one point.
Oh, sure.
Because he was trying to be a monopoly with Microsoft. And I got to thinking, okay, he's spending all these years talking about depopulation. Okay, well, I get it. Probably that'd be a good idea, okay? And then he gets into these vaccines, which he's getting in a lot of trouble over.
They kicked him out of India.
Yeah, they're actually suing.
Yeah.
They're bringing him up on charges.
Children are dying and becoming deformed from
and really the thing is this is really, I think, is really true. Once somebody gets to a point in their consciousness where they think they're a little smarter than everybody, or they know what to do, even though I know what to do, what they need to be doing, then we have a problem. Because the brother ain't never been the guy at the McDonald's. So to him, it's just maybe speculation, but maybe they're not quite as important. Do you see?
Oh, yeah. My wife says to me every day, she says, when I hear about the depopulation agenda, I want to say, hey, well, maybe you want to volunteer first,
Right.
I mean,
right.
So who,
Right.
who gets to choose who's going to go? The Georgia Guidestones said that we should keep population at 500 million or less
Yeah.
for a natural balance. Have you heard of the Georgia Guidelines? Yeah, I mean, that was like, whoa.
But you know, he did that. Then he gets into the vaccines, and these people start paralyzed and getting all these sicknesses in Africa, and he doesn't think it matters because those people are poor people. I mean, those people barely surviving. And I heard that his mentality on that was like, well, we gave them vaccines because we want them to have 2 healthy kids so they won't make so many. That's not how that works. Those people make all those kids because that's what they do. Mm-hmm. You know, you have some cultures that a lot of kids is the answer. Some don't. But these are cultures. So just because, well, we got 2 that's going to work, they're going to make it, so that's it. Yeah, probably not. Probably not.
Well, you bring up a good point. I mean, culture is so valuable, you know, to be a German person, to be a Spanish person, to be an English person.
Changes your whole outlook.
You know, and these cultures have developed over the years, and I think if you look closely at the agenda that's coming forth, it's to blend everybody together. And so we're all one world, and we're all going to say kumbaya.
Yeah.
And one world order.
Yeah, that's Gary O's stuff there, man. But anyway, what I was going to say was, so he gets involved in these vaccines. Then you hear, I can't verify it, but supposedly he was doing some testing here. And then it got de-authorized or something. So he shifts it to China. And then we have bad things happening. Now, if I was to depopulate someplace, I would take out the sick, I would take out the elderly, and I'd take out the people that weren't doing their job if I was that much of an animal. So who's dropping?
Right. That's
So
exactly what's happening.
is it a design? Is it somebody's prediction? Got a little hard. That's a little hard.
We're into speculation now.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
We
who
don't
the
know.
hell
We
knows?
don't know. You know, and we don't know exactly. Look, if you take a look at the possibility that a global cataclysm will come within the next 27 years, then maybe those people have a plan, you know,
Right.
and those people are trying to figure out how to save humanity. Maybe, of course, everyone's viewpoint is, I'm doing the right thing for the world. They
Everybody's.
justify. And
Right.
and so then you learn that in Avatar. You learn, hey, look, if you're justifying your belief for doing certain thing, I'm justified in doing this thing, stealing or killing, whatever. And then you know you have an integrity problem.
Right. Right.
Because that justification says you're not working from your higher self.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what it is. It's like I said, I always tell people I was raised by wolves, and metaphorically speaking, I was, right? But it wasn't because they were bad people. It's because that's how their thinking was created, how they were conditioned. You say so. Really, there are no bad people. Even say that was true. That stuff we were saying about Gates and all that. Say that was true. I don't know what it is. Hell, I'm just thinking. You know, nobody knows. You can wonder about it. But is he doing it? If that was true, if a person was doing that, would they be doing that because they just want to jack people up? Or do they really believe that this is going to save the world?
Right. That's the question.
Now, the person that's got the money, he's not having financial problems, he's healthy, he's not going to get sick, he ain't worried about that damn virus. You know what I'm saying? But the people that are tripping, that are barely hanging on, they are. But, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you know, you see the world from your perspective.
From what you know.
From what you know. And
Yeah.
so, these are, whether it's his karma or his dharma. I mean, look, he's born into this billionaire family. His dad hung out with
I didn't know that.
Rockefellers. Oh, yeah. It wasn't like, he was just figured this out when he was a high school kid. No,
Rockefellers.
he's born into a billionaire family.
Yeah, figures, yeah.
Yeah. So, this is his dharma. They were grooming him for this.
The other thing is, though, if you come from a place of privilege, you tend to see opportunity more readily than if you're the inner city kid trying to figure out how to get his next sandwich. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so your whole approach to everything is going to be different. But see, that's where the problem lives. Because a lot of the people that are in charge of us are people of privilege, or to some degree. And once they get up there, and they're up there long enough, then they feel like a person of privilege. And the rest of the people are almost throwaways.
Well,
and they don't understand how we live.
One way I look at it is, and I think I got this from Harry. It's not about like who's in power or like how do they become in power, but really it's the organized versus the disorganized.
Yeah.
It's like we try to figure out how to march on Washington. We can barely do that, but I mean these people have figured out how to have military, how to get a world governance system in place. The United Nations, the World Health Organization, no one's heard of it before. It's this thing, but they're so powerful, and the banking. The banking system, you look at where the money comes from. Every single country that's been like attacked and overrun in the last 20, 30 years, well,
people with gold.
They were the people who, they were not part of the plan. They weren't part of the central banking. And then afterwards, they became part of the central banking system. And once you have control of a nation's money, well, then you have control of the nation.
Yeah.
And
And the hell of it is, there's control over the money, but there really isn't any money. All it is a couple keystrokes.
Right now, it's all the belief.
I mean,
so they've really
Nixon.
worked the belief of there's no gold anymore. It's just this idea, and they're printing trillions now. And, we thought whatever 800 billion was a big deal in 2008. I mean, now they're printing trillions like it's nobody's business.
Yeah.
And so you can see where it's where it's coming from. This belief in money that it's important. And there's a book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. He talks about this when they came together
big meeting,
in 1913 or so, and created the central banks. And when you see that, when you discover that, and you realize what's happening, you to have a little more compassion for conspiracy theorists, because these people are going a little step further, looking beyond the elephant and the donkey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is a little bit of more thought would be good.
Oh yeah.
Conspiracy theory is great, but sometimes it get a little tough on you. Like the flat Earth thing. For my opinion, come on, really?
Well, I think there's been a really fantastic psyop or psychological operations that are thrown in because look, if you know what you're doing, you can instill weird beliefs like the flat Earth, or maybe the what is it one where everything's changed in time. This idea that our world is in a different time loop. And they come out with these theories, and of course, people who want to believe all the weird stuff. I mean, believe me, the weird stuff is more interesting. Right?
Absolutely. It's funner to think about.
Exactly. The Mandela effect.
Mandela.
Yeah.
There's a lot of documentaries out right now, though, like the Full Cabal and Pandemic movie and stuff like that kind of explains all these conspiracy theorists, truth-seeking
Right,
ideas.
people are looking beyond the mainstream media. When you discover that the mainstream media is owned by like 6 companies,
Yeah.
And then when you read through WikiLeaks emails, when you discover that Hillary was taking commands and orders from Lady Rothschild, she's
Absolutely.
Lady Rothschild, hey, you're going to be in New York. Oh, so wonderful. We're looking for more direction, she said.
Well, I had a client that used to work in the White House with Obama. And again, this is just what she said. I'm going to use her name. But I used to say, he's pretty good, right? He's a good guy. And she goes, he's nice enough, but he's kind of weak. I said, really? She says, yeah, those guys push him around, man. He doesn't say anything unless they tell him to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, she's pointing out.
That's why he froze with that teleprompter thing. Remember?
Yeah. Oh, I remember that.
He was watching the teleprompter and it malfunctioned,
He
jacked him up.
He didn't know what to say.
Well, there are people who study numerology and gematria. If you've ever want to go down a rabbit hole, gematria is the study of how words and letters create a reality. So
they do.
Yeah. And so when you look at the numerology and then the gematria of different words, the Democrat and Republican, they have the same gematria number. And the United States has been built on some of these foundations. And so when you discover that, you discover there's a pretty deep rabbit hole.
Yeah. Well, you know what the thing is, though? Whether it's a number, a sound, a color, a rock, there's all a vibrational frequency on every damn thing. And so I have, in the years that I've been doing what I do, I started off like everybody else. I read a few tarot cards and, little this, little that, had the little techniques I used to use. And now all I can do is talk. I don't have any techniques or don't use cards. I think I use my cards once a month. Somebody likes to look at them. But the point is, what I've realized as I've done this more and more, is I've noticed the vibrational frequency aspects. So somebody can come to me completely just wasted, and all I got to do is tell them a few things. You can see them wake up, you know? It doesn't have to be anything important. It could be something as simple as, well, maybe you're done with that now. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then they're finally starting to get it up. And it ends up happening as their vibration comes up, they start seeing possibilities in their life, and then they're good. Then they go outside, the mother slaps them around or whatever, and they go down again. You know what I'm saying? There's actually a quantum physicist who was talking about, if you're in a line at a grocery store and you got somebody standing behind you that's really burning or having a big problem, you'll actually feel it and not know it. And I know that's true. And so it drags you down. So the idea is when you pull away, you have to bring it back up. Do you see? It's just all fluid.
Yeah, well, if it's
You
a
know?
plasma universe,
Yeah.
each of us, when you look at the chakras, are like a donut, And it
Yeah.
turns out, just recently, they discovered more proof for the fact that the universe is shaped like a donut.
Yeah.
And it's pretty fascinating when you look at how stars and galaxies
You know, the
move.
interesting thing about that is, like I do the Munich rites, and it's originated in South America, in the Andes and that sort of thing. And they use a donut rock for that.
Wow.
It's called a pie stone. And they find them just everywhere down there. And then they found them in the Himalayas, because apparently these characters were in the Himalayas first. And after 3,000 years, they walked their ass down to Peru in that area. I guess they took the rocks with them, or they made some more. I don't know how that worked. But the point is, you're saying that the universe is a donut. Well, that's where that's coming from. And we're talking, dude, centuries away.
Yeah. No,
Centuries.
the ancients knew this.
Yeah.
They did.
You know what? That's because they live by that. They live by energy. They live by spirit, by observance. And that's how they had to live. They didn't have somebody telling them what to do, necessarily. Do you see?
Right. They were more connected.
Yeah, the guy that told them what to do, he wasn't telling them what to do. He's telling them how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
there's a big difference. Yeah.
like I've done a lot of shamanic stuff, and basically shamanic stuff isn't about, I'm going to fix you. Shamanic stuff is, this is how you handle it.
Mm-hmm.
You see? Which is really what this is all about,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this is all about. This thing, this podcast thing, is to have possibilities, techniques, ideas, something that allows people to get just a little more muscle, a little less fear, a little more insight, the ability to act instead of react. That's what this stuff is all about, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Have we had any questions?
Well, when I tried to check, then it made the sound weird.
You could
So
maybe mute it.
yeah, there you go.
Phone, and then let's just bring the volume down.
it looks like it is muted, actually.
really?
The speaker.
Have we had any questions?
See.
Okay. Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
We're doing well for our first
Anytime I
one.
try to click on
Yeah.
it, that's what happens.
Oh, we'll have to figure out something else next time.
Yeah.
All right. So this pandemic thing, do you think it's something that somebody did and screwed up, or do you think it's some universal thing, or
I think, or
both?
I think I can speculate, and
Well, that's what we do in here, buddy.
but I think it's a great awakening, for everyone to say, okay, look, what's happening? Whether you believe that Agenda 21 or Agenda 2030 is playing a part, whether you believe the governors have the best interest in for you, and well, what are you doing about it? When I heard about it, now I think my wife and I were, Felicia and I were way ahead. Like I was telling people in January, like this thing's coming, and I told a client of mine, I was like, have you heard of this? She's like, no. I'm like, what, are you kidding me? You haven't heard? It's like, so it's like we've been watching John, this fellow in Great Britain. He was a nurse and a teacher, and talking about it for a while. And so, we had our masks before masks, were sold out. We have our solar panels.
You're ready to roll.
We have our electric power. If the grid goes down, we've been preparing. We're not we didn't think of ourselves as preppers.
Yeah.
We just said, hey,
Right.
what could happen?
Survivors.
Yeah, so we're just like, just common sense, when you see what could be, maybe we should. And I was concerned at first, and then a couple weeks later, like in February, I realized, wait a second, I was sick in January twice. I had a lot of big fever. I was down for a while, weird fever, I thought maybe I had it already.
Maybe you didn't even know it,
I didn't even know it,
Yeah.
And my daughter and son-in-law, they came in from New York, talk about, I was like, get out of New York. We said, get out. They were coming here anyway. But accelerate, move it up. And they moved it up, and like the next day they were locked down in New York. And, they probably had it.
Yeah.
And so we're survivors. You
Yeah.
know, and now I'm unconcerned, because
I'm not worried about it at all. Mm-mm.
yeah.
Matter of fact, even the damage it does to our population, I don't think it's what we're hearing for real. I think it's maybe a quarter of that. The rest is just, the person is dying of a heart attack, but he's got this COVID, so that's what he died of. Right. That kind of nonsense.
Well, you read about it.
But I was in '89. I remember telling somebody, man, after 2010, man, shit's gonna hit the fan. Mm-hmm. So you're gonna want to buy a freaking T-shirt when the shit's done. That I've been through it.
Right.
And everybody, what? What are you talking about? Oh, this is what it's feeling. It's gonna get wicked. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was talking riots and stuff like that, and we're on our way to that.
Well, you know what happened in 1918. After that pandemic, then people started having famine. And the food industry is falling apart. Whether it's the climate or other things. So that's the next thing that we need to look for. Grow your own food. It's not that hard.
Yeah, but see, they were blocking that too, though. Government was blocking that stuff. You couldn't do that in your yard. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dude in Washington's what I was saying earlier. That used to make me mad to think about it. He had his own pond. He created it, and they put him in jail. Wow. Collecting his own assholes.
Well,
yeah. What state was it that she won't allow you to buy seeds? The governor there.
Oh God,
I don't remember what state.
Yeah, there was. I saw a report on that.
That wasn't that was just recently.
Mm-hmm. Recently, yeah, they shut that down. That's not essential. But liquor stores are open.
Yeah.
And the guy, a lot of people in Florida were growing vegetables in their yard, and they were going to jail.
Wow.
What is that?
This is what we're faced with. To be able to be a sovereign human being and
this is where we have to get the strength to say no.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we won't go to famine. I can tell you that, and I'll tell you why.
We have a long ways.
Well, beyond that, you realize what kind of shit would hit the fan if we started getting hungry? I mean, there's too many guns loose in this world, man. Our country is already pretty violent based. Maybe not based, but a lot of violence. A lot of people that are ready to fight. You start making people hungry,
it's going to get ugly.
It's going to get ugly. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think we have a different viewpoint here in Texas. We have ranchers, we have people who are willing to stand up and say, this is mine.
Well, that's actually our next guest this next time. Mm-hmm. He's the head of the militia in Texas.
Oh, wow.
But the cool thing about it, a lot of people think that they're like American terrorists, and they're really not. This guy that I'm talking about, he always goes through law enforcement, if at all possible. And he's really good about making sure that everything they do is legal, ethical, stuff like this. But he said when it gets raw, everything changes. Mm-hmm. The rules change. You say? When I was in '69, I used to be drug into a basement. My dad was a little bit nuts like that. He used to drag me in the basement to watch the John Birch Society people. Remember them? These guys had bazookas and shit buried in their yard. Yeah. And they were blaming the Beatles. So the Beatles bringing communism. But anyway, these guys are a little different. These guys are a little bit more tuned in.
Yeah. Fantastic. I'm looking forward to watching that one.
Yeah. And the cool thing about it, they're not going to get half-cocked or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I really respect him. And otherwise we wouldn't be here. So, but I think it's going to get like that. I think it's going to get hot enough that politicians are going to start backing up a little. They're already starting. There's a few politicians here and there. They're starting to change their attitudes just a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like you're hearing Rand Paul really making a lot more sense than he has before. And there's a few like that. I'm not going to start naming names, but the point is, it's going to start saying, okay, yeah, you know what, that guy's making sense, but it isn't. It's going to start really contrasted.
think what's going to be important is your neighbor making sense. You know,
Yeah.
if your neighbor's looking to rat you out because you maybe walking too close to your girlfriend or boyfriend, not wearing a mask, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we have to develop more community-based outreach programs, and you know, if you have a community garden, that's going to be more valuable.
Well, I think that's a lot of it too. I think we need to get past. We need to get past the need the government do for us, like the homeless situation. There's a private way to fix that. The food issues. There's a private way to fix that too. You know, it doesn't have to be government programs. But a lot of our people are conditioned to say, well, the government has to change this. You have to change that. Somebody said something bad to me, so there have to be a law saying he can't do that. The answer is get strong enough so even if he says it, it won't matter.
Exactly.
Do you see?
Yeah, people are really starting to, like you said, the Great Awakening, people are really starting to, you know, think about themselves more, not like in a selfish way, but how can I take care of myself and not depend on the government?
Yes, exactly. Being self-reliant versus having the government, you know, hand you money or hand
Well, it's kind of like, you know, you don't want the government to be your dad.
Right.
Because if he was your dad, he'd be an abusive bastard. so it's that simple. So, but we're out of time now, man. We hit the four right now, so we're going to have to roll. But thanks for coming, brother.
Thanks for having me.
So
It was
nice
fantastic.
meeting
Great
you.
to meet you. Vince.
Do you have a number or anything you want to put out?
Oh, you know, we're doing the Wellness Expo. It was rescheduled from April to July 11th and 12th.
Cool. I'll be in town.
Go to wellnessexpo.net and you can check it out. And if you're in Houston, we're doing one in Houston now, expanding to Houston September 5th and 6th.
Cool.
Again, wellnessexpo.net.
All right. Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Is there anything you want to say?
No, I'm
No,
good.
you're good.
Thanks for
You did good, baby. Absolutely. I knew you would. I talked to her on the phone. I said, you're it. You need to be doing this, man. She says, no, what happened? No, come on. You can
Maybe I'll talk a little more next time. This is the first time.
Anyway, my name's Robert Crusoe, professional intuitive. My number is 972. No, it isn't. My number is 469-546-8017, or you can go to robertcrusoeonline.com. I'm also on Facebook, so hit me up there. And other than that, we'll talk to you next week. Well, you can see through the camera. And we'll have Rick Light, who's head of the Texas militia, and we'll talk to him about, you know, his take on these things and what we're up against. Anyway, everybody have a good day, and there we go.
Bye.
Shit.